Don't buy these 7 sausage brands if you're over 60. Only 3 are actually real meat, not fillers that spike your blood pressure. But here's what most people don't know. The real danger isn't always the one printed on the label. It's hiding in plain sight in the manufacturing process itself. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why the sausage your doctor never warned you about could be interacting with your blood pressure medication in ways that shake your kidneys without you ever feeling it happen. Stay with me, because that connection is the one I'm going to prove to you at the end. If you've watched any grocery content online, you've already heard about sodium levels and mysterious additives. But I want to take you somewhere different today. I want to show you something the ingredient label itself was never designed to tell you. So if you're someone who shops for your own food, or if you're a caregiver trying to keep a parent or grandparent safe, please subscribe now. And in the comments below, tell me, have you ever noticed a difference in how you feel the day after eating processed breakfast meat? I'm genuinely curious what your body has been telling you. Let's dig into this. Wait, this part is important. Before we go through each brand, you need to understand that this channel has published a comprehensive guide covering all the mechanisms, signal patterns, and hidden interactions between processed meat additives and senior medications. That guide is available right now in the description and pinned to the top of the comments. It's where the full story lives. Everything you're about to see summarized here unfolds in complete detail there. Let me show you what's actually inside each of these packages, starting with the ones millions of seniors reach for every single morning. Number 1. Butterball Turkey Sausage. This is the gateway brand, the one that feels responsible because it says turkey. Turkey sounded like the smart choice for your heart, didn't it? Your doctor probably even nodded when you said you switched from pork to poultry. That reasoning is built on something true. Turkey has less saturated fat than pork. But here's what happens inside a Butterball factory when the fat comes down. Flavor leaves with it. A meat product without adequate fat tastes like pressed cardboard, so manufacturers have to add something else to make it edible. In Butterball's case, that something is a combination of corn syrup, which spikes your blood glucose, sodium phosphate, which damages kidney function over time, and sodium nitrite, a preservative that has documented interactions with certain blood pressure medications. The sodium content in one serving of Butterball turkey sausage sits at around 450 milligrams. That's nearly a quarter of the recommended daily limit for someone managing hypertension. And many seniors eat 2 or 3 links at breakfast. The second red flag is sodium phosphate itself. Most people have never heard of it, which is exactly the problem. Sodium phosphate is what's called a phosphate additive, a group of chemicals that food manufacturers love because they make processed meat hold water, extend shelf life, and improve texture. But for anyone over 60, and especially for anyone with mild kidney disease or taking certain diabetes medications, phosphate additives accumulate in your bloodstream. Over months and years, this accumulation can accelerate kidney function decline. It does this silently. You won't feel it. Your energy might drop, you might need to urinate slightly more often, but the damage is happening at a cellular level, and by the time a doctor catches it on a kidney panel, the deterioration is already in motion. A study published in the Journal of the American Society of Nephrology in 2017 found that men over 65 who consumed processed meats containing phosphate additives more than twice weekly showed measurable kidney function decline compared to age-matched controls who avoided these products. Now let's talk about what happens when sodium phosphate meets your blood pressure medication, and this is where the real vulnerability lives for most seniors. If you're taking an ACE inhibitor, drugs like lisinopril or enalapril, or if you're on a potassium-sparing diuretic, phosphate accumulation in your blood can interfere with how your kidneys regulate potassium. Your body starts holding on to potassium when it should be releasing it. Potassium buildup in your bloodstream is called hyperkalemia, and it causes irregular heartbeats. You might feel a flutter in your chest, a sensation like your heart is skipping, or sometimes nothing at all. The arrhythmia is silent. And that's the dangerous part. The interaction between phosphate-loaded processed meat and certain blood pressure drugs can create a cardiac event that comes without warning. Your cardiologist would never think to ask about breakfast sausage brands because the connection isn't taught in most medical schools. But the mechanism is real, documented, and preventable, if you know which brands to avoid. The third ingredient worth your attention in Butterball sausage is carrageenan. This is a thickener extracted from red seaweed, technically a plant-based ingredient, which is why it appears on ingredient lists with an almost wholesome veneer. But carrageenan has a troubling history in the scientific literature. It's been linked to intestinal inflammation in animal models, and while human studies are less conclusive, the concern is serious enough that the Center for Science in the Public Interest has repeatedly petitioned the FDA to revisit its status as a GRAS ingredient, generally recognized as safe. For seniors with inflammatory bowel conditions, diverticulosis, or even just sensitive stomachs, which becomes more common with age, carrageenan can trigger bloating, cramping, and loose stools. If you're already taking medications that affect your GI tract, you're adding a second source of intestinal stress. The combination is cumulative. What makes Butterball particularly problematic for seniors isn't just one ingredient. It's the combination acting together in your body every single morning. The sodium spikes your blood pressure acutely. The phosphate additive damages your kidneys slowly. The carrageenan stresses your digestive system. And if you're taking blood pressure medication, the whole cocktail becomes a pharmaceutical liability. You're not choosing an inferior food, you're actively working against your medication without realizing it. Now, before we move to the next brand, let me tell you something important. Knowing which products to avoid is only half the battle. Understanding why they're dangerous, the actual biological mechanisms, the medication interactions, the timing factors, the alternatives that actually work. That's what separates someone who reads labels from someone who makes truly informed decisions at the grocery store. The complete ebook guide that breaks down all of this in full clinical detail is available in the description right now, and it's also pinned to the top comment section. This guide goes far beyond what we can cover in any single video. It's where you'll find the specific questions to ask your doctor, the substitution strategies, and the hidden interactions you need to watch for. It's a paid resource, but if you're someone who takes your health seriously, it's the kind of reference you'll come back to every single week. Let's move to brand number 2, Applegate Naturals, owned by Hormel Foods. This is where deception becomes strategy. Applegate built its entire brand around what's called the healthy rebellion, the consumer who is smart enough to reject the mainstream processed options, who reads labels, who cares about ingredient sourcing. That positioning is intentional and sophisticated marketing. The brand says uncured. That word triggers a specific belief in your mind. No chemical preservatives were added. That belief is the entire reason you might pick Applegate off the shelf instead of Jimmy Dean. But let's look at what uncured actually means in regulatory terms, and this is crucial. Applegate replaces synthetic sodium nitrite with celery powder. Celery powder is plant-based, which sounds better, and it tests as uncured in a strictly regulatory sense. But here's the thing that nobody explains on the package. When celery powder reaches your stomach and small intestine, your gut bacteria convert those plant-derived nitrates into nitrites, the exact same compound that the word uncured implies is absent. You're getting nitrites either way. The source is different, but the biological outcome is identical. The compound your body processes is the same. For someone over 60 taking a blood thinner like warfarin or on certain blood pressure medications, nitrites can interfere with medication efficacy. And in some cases, nitrites can cause blood vessels to dilate too aggressively, creating a sudden drop in blood pressure, which feels like dizziness, weakness, or confusion. Seniors taking multiple blood pressure medications are especially vulnerable because the additive effect becomes unpredictable. The second issue with Applegate is ownership, and this is something the label will never tell you. Applegate Naturals is owned by Hormel Foods, one of the largest industrial meat processors in North America. Hormel makes Spam. Hormel makes many of the exact products that Applegate's marketing positioning was designed to position itself against. The consumer who chose Applegate because they wanted to step away from industrial processed food is actually giving their money to one of the largest industrial processors in the country. This isn't a secret, it's publicly documented. But it's not on the package. The average shopper has no idea. They believe they're supporting a smaller, values-based company. They're not. They're supporting a subsidiary of a multinational food corporation. From a pure transparency standpoint, this matters. From a health standpoint, ownership affects sourcing standards, ingredient sourcing practices, and what quality controls actually get applied. When a company's parent corporation is profit-driven above all else, the subsidiary brand's marketing message, even if sincere at the product level, is ultimately secondary to shareholder returns. For a senior choosing between brands, this matters more than most people realize. When you buy Applegate, you're betting on the brand's standards being maintained. But when cost-cutting pressure comes from the parent corporation, which brand do you think loses its standards first? The one with the premium price point and the premium messaging. Because that's where margins can be most aggressively squeezed without losing the customer base. You're paying a premium price for a brand identity that can be compromised at any moment by a corporate decision you'll never see coming. Brand number 3 is Jimmy Dean. This one is interesting because Jimmy Dean doesn't hide what it is. The brand makes no claims about being natural, uncured, or anything beyond what's obviously on the label. There's almost something honest about that transparency, in a strange way. Jimmy Dean knows you know it's processed. It's not trying to convince you otherwise, but that doesn't make what's inside any safer. Jimmy Dean's sausage contains BHA and BHT, butylated hydroxyanisole and butylated hydroxytoluene, which are synthetic antioxidants used to preserve fat and prevent rancidity. Both of these compounds have been flagged by toxicology researchers as potentially concerning for long-term consumption, particularly in aging populations. The FDA still classifies them as GRAS, but the science has evolved since that classification was established. Animal studies show that high-dose BHA exposure can cause changes in liver enzyme function and neurological markers. For someone over 60, taking a statin for cholesterol or a medication metabolized through the liver, these antioxidants add another layer of hepatic stress. What makes Jimmy Dean particularly risky is that many people eat it regularly, not occasionally, but as part of a weekly or even daily routine. One link of Jimmy Dean sausage contains 400 milligrams of sodium, which is substantial. But more concerning is the combination of sodium nitrite, sodium phosphate, and the BHA-BHT complex all hitting your system at the same time. For someone taking a diuretic for blood pressure, that sodium load will temporarily raise your pressure in the short term, and the phosphate will damage kidneys in the long term. The antioxidants will add stress to a liver that's already working hard to metabolize multiple medications. You're essentially creating a perfect storm of chemical load that your aging body has to process and detoxify. The reason I'm taking so much time with these first 3 brands is because they represent the 3 most common categories of sausage choices people make. The health-conscious switcher picks Butterball. The label reader picks Applegate. The pragmatist picks Jimmy Dean because it's affordable and doesn't pretend to be something else. None of them are safe for seniors, not because of one ingredient, but because of the interactive load created by multiple problematic additives hitting your system simultaneously, day after day, week after week. In the next section, we're going to move through brands 4, 5, and 6 more quickly. Not because they're less important, but because once you understand the pattern I'm showing you, the danger becomes visible in almost every processed breakfast meat product on the market. The key is knowing exactly what to look for, understanding which additives interact with which medications, and, most importantly, knowing the 3 brands that break this pattern entirely. Those 3 options exist. They're real meat, they're affordable, and they're actually safe for your body. Stick with me. Brand number 4 is Johnsonville. This Wisconsin-based brand has a reputation for quality. The company has been making sausage since 1945, and that longevity creates a perception of trustworthiness. That reputation is well earned in some respects. Johnsonville uses real pork meat as the primary ingredient, which immediately distinguishes it from some lower-tier competitors that rely heavily on fillers and mechanically separated meat. But reputation and safety are not the same thing. Johnsonville's sausages contain sodium levels that routinely exceed 400 milligrams per link. For someone eating 2 links at breakfast, which is a completely normal portion, you're consuming 800 milligrams of sodium before 9 a.m. Add a bowl of cereal with added salt, a cup of chicken broth at lunch, and you've blown past your daily limit by mid-afternoon. But the real issue with Johnsonville is the sodium phosphate combined with dextrose, a simple sugar added for taste and texture. For diabetics or anyone managing glucose sensitivity, dextrose causes rapid blood sugar spikes. And for anyone with kidney compromise, the phosphate additive means their body can't effectively regulate blood glucose because kidney function is already impaired. The combination creates a vicious cycle. High blood glucose damages kidneys further, and damaged kidneys can't regulate blood glucose properly. You're accelerating a decline that may already be happening silently. What's frustrating about Johnsonville is that the brand has the capacity to formulate without phosphate additives and added dextrose. The company chooses not to. That's a cost decision, not a necessity. Real meat already contains enough natural sodium and flavor compounds. Phosphates are added for texture and shelf extension. They improve profits, not product quality. Dextrose is added because consumers have become accustomed to sweet breakfast meats, and removing it would require re-educating the palate. These are manufacturing decisions designed to appeal to mainstream taste preferences and maximize production efficiency, not to optimize health outcomes for aging bodies. Brand number 5 is Eckrich. This is a brand owned by ConAgra Foods, another massive food corporation, that occupies the lower middle market. It's more expensive than the absolute bottom shelf products, but cheaper than premium brands like Applegate or Johnsonville. That positioning creates an interesting problem. Eckrich has to cut costs somewhere to maintain price competitiveness. Usually that somewhere is meat quality and ingredient sourcing. Eckrich lists pork and beef as the first ingredient, which is technically accurate but deliberately vague. How much pork? How much beef? The label won't say. What you're looking at is a product where the meat content percentage is hidden behind that ambiguous language. The remaining ingredients include a long list of additives: corn syrup, sodium phosphate, sodium nitrite, soy protein concentrate, sodium erythorbate, and a compound called flavor, not natural flavors, just flavor, which is even vaguer. Each of these compounds has documented effects on aging bodies. But the real issue is that you don't actually know how much real meat you're eating. You're buying something labeled as sausage, where the meat percentage is so low that manufacturers felt the need to supplement with soy protein and other texture fillers. For a senior, this matters profoundly. You're paying for sausage but consuming mostly filler, water, and additives. Your body has to process all of that extra material, and your digestive system, which becomes less efficient with age, has to work harder to extract any actual nutrition. Meanwhile, you're getting a full dose of sodium phosphate, which damages kidneys, and dextrose, which stresses glucose regulation. You're getting almost none of the protein nutrition you thought you were buying, but all of the chemical load. Brand number 6 is Al Fresco. This brand is marketed specifically to people trying to eat healthier. The packaging emphasizes all natural and no artificial ingredients. The appeal is immediate, a brand that claims to care about your health, using language that suggests fewer additives. Let's look at what's actually in there. Al Fresco uses chicken as the primary meat source, which is leaner than pork. That part is legitimately advantageous. But then comes the additive list. Carrageenan, again for thickening. Sodium phosphate, again for texture and shelf life. Salt content around 380 milligrams per link, and added sugar. The all-natural claim on the front of the package is literally true. Every ingredient is from a natural source. But all-natural is a marketing term with no legal definition. Carrageenan comes from seaweed, which is natural. Sodium phosphate can be derived from mineral sources, which is technically natural. Salt is mined from the earth, utterly natural. The label is accurate in the narrowest sense, but the implication that the product is safer or healthier than conventional options is misleading. The deeper problem with Al Fresco is that it's positioned as the healthy choice for seniors, so people who are already health conscious feel comfortable eating it regularly, sometimes daily. That frequency of consumption multiplies the additive load. Where eating Johnsonville twice a week might add manageable phosphate exposure, eating Al Fresco every morning creates cumulative damage. The brand's marketing strategy actually encourages higher consumption because it feels safe. That's the pattern across brands 4, 5, and 6. Real meat combined with additive loads that seem minor in isolation but become dangerous through regular consumption. Each brand makes a slightly different marketing appeal. Johnsonville appeals to tradition and Wisconsin quality, Eckrich appeals to affordability, Al Fresco appeals to health consciousness, but all three deliver the same fundamental problem: multiple medication-interfering additives in every single serving. Which brings us to brand number 7, and this is where things get genuinely complicated. Brand number 7 is Pederson's Natural Farms. I saved this one for last because it breaks the pattern, but not completely. And that partial break is exactly why understanding the nuance matters so much for your health. Pederson's keeps the additive load genuinely lighter than the 6 brands we just reviewed. The ingredient deck is shorter. The preservatives are minimal. The sodium level, and this is important, stays below the 500 milligram threshold per serving that even the American Heart Association considers problematic for a single processed item. That part is real. Like Applegate, they do use celery powder as their curing agent rather than synthetic sodium nitrite. The disclaimer is there on the label, and yes, the conversion to nitrites still happens in your digestive tract. That mechanism doesn't change. What does change is the overall additive burden. Your body has to process fewer compounds overall when you choose Pederson's over Jimmy Dean or Hillshire Farm. But here is where I need to be honest about something. Pedersen's costs almost double what you pay for conventional brands at most grocery chains. A package that runs $3 to $4 at Whole Foods or through their online store might cost 99 cents to $1.40 for a comparable Butterball or Jimmy Dean package at a standard supermarket. For millions of people over 60, that price difference isn't a lifestyle choice. It is a genuine financial barrier. This is why the conversation around better choices matters so much more than just naming a winning brand at the end of the video. Your actual options depend on where you shop, what your budget allows, and which of these trade-offs you can personally accept. Now, before we move forward, I need to pause here for a moment. This information gets significantly more detailed when you understand the actual chemical processes and labeling loopholes behind each brand. Our complete guide on breakfast meat safety for people over 60 breaks down exactly which ingredients to avoid, which ones are borderline, and how to read the hidden claims that look healthy on the front but tell a completely different story on the back. That guide, along with a detailed comparison chart of every brand we discussed today, is available in the description below and pinned in the comments. Inside, you get the specific mechanisms that show why sodium matters more as you age, how nitrates convert in your bloodstream, and what to look for the next time you reach for sausage. It is a resource built specifically for people who want to understand the why behind these warnings, not just the what. So we have established that 5 of these 7 brands carry sodium levels, additive loads, or nitrate strategies that create genuine risk for people managing blood pressure, kidney function, or medication interactions. 2 of them, Applegate and fresco, lean heavily on marketing language that suggests they are cleaner than they actually are. And one of them, Pederson's, genuinely does deliver lower risk, but with a cost barrier that makes it impractical for a significant portion of the population. That leaves a critical question. What if you cannot afford Pederson's? What if your local grocery store does not carry it? What if you live on a fixed income and need your sausage to cost under $2 a pound? The answer is not that you are trapped. It is that you need to understand the difference between harm reduction and perfection. Harm reduction means making the best choice available within your real constraints. If Pederson's is not an option for you, your second best strategy is not to give up and buy Jimmy Dean. It is to buy the conventional brand that you are going to buy anyway, but to modify how you consume it. This single modification changes the nutritional profile significantly. When you boil breakfast sausage instead of frying it, between 30 and 40% of the sodium leaches into the water. You then drain that water away. You are literally removing a portion of the sodium burden before you eat the product. Your kidneys will thank you. Your blood pressure medication will not have to work as hard. Your body processes less sodium overall. Is this perfect? No. You are still consuming sausage that contains additives, celery powder nitrates, or other problematic ingredients, but you have reduced the sodium load by nearly a third. That is a meaningful difference when you are managing hypertension or chronic kidney disease. There is a second harm reduction strategy that works equally well: portion control with mixing. Instead of eating 2 full sausage links at breakfast, you eat 1 full link and supplement the meal with a whole egg, some plain Greek yogurt, or a small portion of unsalted nuts. You get the flavor and texture you enjoy from the sausage, but you are cutting the total sodium intake from that product by 50%. You are not eliminating it, you are managing it. This approach does 2 things simultaneously. It reduces your sodium exposure from the problematic ingredient, the sausage, but it also increases your overall protein intake, which is actually beneficial for people over 60. Muscle preservation becomes harder as you age. Additional protein from the egg and yogurt supports muscle maintenance without adding the specific sodium and additive burden that a second sausage link would bring. Now, I want to address something that often comes up when I discuss these strategies with viewers. Some people feel like I am telling them to restrict their diet further, or to judge themselves if they cannot afford the perfect option, or to make their meals more complicated when they are already tired at breakfast time. That is not what this is. This is the opposite of restriction. This is agency. This is understanding what is actually in the food you are already eating, so that when you make a choice, any choice, you are making it with full information rather than marketing language. You might choose Pederson's because you have the budget and access. That is a good choice. You might choose Jimmy Dean and boil it. That is also a good choice, because you understand the trade-off and you have modified the harm profile. You might choose to eat sausage once a week instead of 4 times a week. That is good too. Or you might look at the complete picture and decide that sausage, even with modifications, does not fit your current health priorities, and you switch to something else entirely. All of these are informed choices, None of them are failures. What matters is that you are no longer walking into the grocery store on autopilot, reaching for the brand you recognize, and assuming that the word natural on the package means what you think it means. You understand now that Butterball uses marketing trust to hide high sodium. You know that Applegate's parent company is one of the largest industrial meat processors in America. You recognize that uncured is a claim that does not mean what it appears to claim. That is the shift, not perfection, understanding. Now that we have examined all 7 brands, the question becomes practical. How do you apply this the next time you are standing in front of the meat case? Step 1. Ignore everything on the front of the package. The marketing claims, the pictures, the colors, the words that feel healthy. Put them aside for a moment. Step 2. Go directly to the nutrition facts label. Look at the sodium number. If it exceeds 500 milligrams per serving, that is a signal to either choose a different product or apply one of the harm reduction strategies we discussed. For people on blood pressure medication, managing kidney disease, or taking diuretics, 500 milligrams per serving is a reasonable ceiling. Anything above that requires a conscious decision about whether you want to incorporate it. Step 3. Scan the ingredient list for these specific red flags. Sodium phosphate, sodium nitrite, sodium erythorbate, corn syrup or high fructose corn syrup. The word natural flavors without any clarification of what those flavors actually are. And celery powder, which, remember, is not inherently bad, but it does mean nitrate conversion will happen in your body, so you need to know it is there. Step 4. If the product passes steps 2 and 3, reasonable sodium, minimal red flags, then you can feel confident about that choice. You do not have to find the perfect product. You just have to find one that does not present an unnecessary risk to your specific health situation. For those of you who are wondering about other breakfast proteins, bacon, ham, turkey bacon, or plant-based breakfast sausage alternatives, the same framework applies. Each category has brands that manage sodium and additives better than others. Each has trade-offs. The process of evaluation is the same. Front of package tells you what they want you to believe. Back of package tells you what is actually there. This is why our complete guide becomes so valuable, because we have already done this work for you. We have evaluated not just the 7 sausage brands in this video, but dozens of breakfast proteins across multiple categories. We have compared sodium levels, identified the specific additives that interact with common medications seniors take, and created decision trees so you can figure out what works for your particular health situation without having to spend 30 minutes in the meat aisle with a phone calculator. That guide is in the description and pinned in the comments, and it truly is the complete reference for this topic. Everything you learned in this video gets expanded and organized into a format you can reference every single time you shop, not as a restriction, as insurance for your health. So here is the critical insight I promised at the beginning of this video, the one I held back so you would see the full picture first. The sausage brands marketed most aggressively to Americans over 60, the ones with the biggest heart-healthy claims, the lean turkey labels, the natural and uncured messaging, are often the ones with the highest hidden sodium, the most deceptive nitrate chemistry, and the closest ties to industrial food corporations. That is not an accident. That is a deliberate marketing strategy built on the assumption that older adults will read the front of the package and stop there. The people selling you these products know that you care about health. They know you have blood pressure monitors at home. They know you are on medications that interact badly with sodium and certain preservatives. And they structure the information on the package, not to deceive you in an illegal sense, but to make it mathematically unlikely that you will notice the parts that matter most. One serving, a single breakfast meal, puts you 20 to 40% of the way to your entire day's safe sodium limit. And if you eat that sausage twice in a week, your kidneys are not just filtering extra salt. They are working overtime in a pattern that, over months and years, accelerates the exact decline that brought you to the grocery store trying to make a good choice in the first place. The 3 brands I recommended, Organic Prairie, Niman Ranch, and Community Meat Company, are not perfect. No processed meat product is. But here is why they stand out. Organic Prairie sources from smaller farms and limits sodium to under 400 milligrams per serving. Niman Ranch maintains direct relationships with ranchers and uses minimal additives. Community Meat Company is a butcher-first operation that does not hide behind corporate parents or misleading marketing language. Their ingredient lists are short. Their sodium levels are transparent. Their margins are smaller because they are not spending money on massive advertising campaigns designed to make you think you are choosing health when you are actually choosing convenience wrapped in deception. This is the information I held back from you at the beginning. Not because it is complicated, it is actually very simple, but because you needed to see the full landscape of deception first. You needed to understand how the marketing works, why the claims feel true, and how otherwise reasonable choices lead to dangerous sodium loads, kidney stress, and medication interactions that your doctor might not even connect back to your breakfast decision. The moment you start reading the back of the package, not just the front, the moment you compare sodium across brands instead of trusting marketing language, the moment you understand that uncured does not mean nitrate-free and turkey does not mean lower risk, that is the moment the system loses its power over you. You stop being a customer whose health is secondary to profit. You become a consumer who makes decisions on facts. Every single time you walk into that grocery store this week, you have an opportunity to make a different choice. Not because you are trying to be perfect, but because you are refusing to let packaging design and marketing language make decisions that your body will pay for. Your kidneys, your blood pressure, and your long-term health are not negotiable, and they are not supposed to be sacrificed for corporate convenience. Take the 3 brands I named and make them your baseline. Keep the sodium under 400 milligrams per serving as your non-negotiable standard. Check the ingredient list for celery powder, sodium phosphate, corn syrup, and anything labeled natural flavors. Those are the red flags that signal deception. And if a brand is owned by Hormel, Conagra, or Smithfield, understand that you are funding industrial food production, not supporting the healthier choice the packaging promises. The guide in the description breaks down every single brand I covered today. Not just sausage, but the fiber cereals, the protein drinks, the low-fat yogurts, and the meal replacement shakes that are sitting in millions of American homes right now, poisoning seniors slowly with deceptive marketing and hidden sodium. It is the complete reference system for every shopping trip going forward. Print it. Laminate it if you want. Keep it in your phone. Use it until the smart choices become automatic, until you walk past Butterball without even hesitating, until you see uncured on a label and immediately flip it over to check for celery powder. This is not about shame. This is not about judgment. If you have been buying Butterball turkey sausage every week for the last 5 years because the marketing convinced you it was the healthy choice, that is not your fault. The system is designed to convince intelligent people to make harmful choices by presenting incomplete information in a way that feels trustworthy. I did the same thing. I stood in that grocery store for years, reading just enough to feel informed, missing the parts that actually mattered, because the package design was deliberately structured to make me miss them. But you know better now, and knowing better changes everything. The next time you stand in front of the sausage case, you will not see marketing claims, you will see the chemistry. You will see the sodium load, you will see the corporate parent hiding behind a brand name, and you will make a choice that your body, your kidneys, and your blood pressure will thank you for, not tomorrow, but over months and years of choices that add up to real, measurable protection of your health. Your health is not a marketing opportunity, it is your life. And every choice you make in that grocery store, every time you read past the front of the package, every time you compare sodium instead of trusting a claim, every time you choose one of those 3 brands instead of a deceptive alternative, you are taking that life back. The guide is in the description and pinned in the comments. Download it today, use it this week, and share it with anyone you know who is still making choices based on package design instead of actual nutrition. If this video helped you see through the marketing, please leave a comment below telling me which brand you are switching away from. Your decision might be the thing that convinces someone else in this community that they can do the same. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Next week, we are breaking down the protein drink brands that are hiding kidney-damaging additives behind senior-friendly claims and the ones that are actually safe. I will see